The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild is a game that needs no introduction, so I'm not gonna bother giving it one. Let's review it.
Open your eyes.
From the moment this game begins, it's very clear that this is not your typical Zelda. There's no opening cutscene, no tutorial, no companion guide bugging you along. There isn't even a title screen. Just a bright light, Link's and some goop for some reason, and the adventure begins. This is the fastest I have fallen for a video game. Nothing kills my excitement and immersion more than some dumb NPCs taking 2 hours to say,
"It says here that you hit the jump button in order to jump." Wowee. Now that's what I call info. It explains the Switch's trigger mechanism. Duh! Don't tell me guys get paid to write this junk.
Breath of the Wild does away with that, letting players do what they want to do when they want to do it. It gave me the sense that this was my adventure, that I was Link. There's no context for this situation because I shouldn't have any. I've lost my memory, and I love that. I value being able to immerse myself in the games I play, and Breath of the Wild does that effortlessly. I am the one that's killing moblins. I am the one that's gliding through the sky. I am the one who will defeat the Calamity Ganon. And it feels incredible. In terms of immersion, this game earns a perfect 10 out of 10. At least it would if some technical issues didn't bring that down to a 9. I never experienced anything game-breaking, but the frequent frame drops and absurd amount of pop-ins served as a constant reminder that no, this is not me. This is Link being controlled by me. And that's not as fun. Performance-wise, this gets an 8 out of 10. The aforementioned flaws may be annoyances at their worst, but they do detract from the overall quality of the game. But when the game does work, it is gorgeous. In terms of my favorite Zelda designs, I don't think it quite compares with the timeless, chibi designs of Wind Waker, but it does follow the same cel-shaded design. Same cel-shaded. Oh my gosh. Same cel-shaded design. Wow. It's definitely one of the best looking Zelda games ever. Art style earns a 10 out of 10. But we don't play games to gawk at them. We play games to play them. Now, there's quite a bit to cover here, so I will be splitting the gameplay into 3 separate sections and reviewing them individually. First off, the puzzles. This game has a fantastic physics engine, with dozens and dozens of puzzles that make use of it. For example, you have the ability to temporarily lock an object in time, strike it repeatedly to build momentum, and release it to send it flying. If you can imagine a way to use this, there will be a puzzle based around that. They are so good. And with how open-ended the gameplay is, there will often be multiple solutions to each puzzle. Like cheating when you lose patience. And the best part is, these puzzles are not limited to dungeons and shrines. Sometimes just getting from point A to point B is a puzzle. And it was always fun. 10 out of 10 in terms of puzzles. In fact, I'm going to make this 11 out of 10. Is that cheating? Probably. But I don't care. I love physics puzzles. Next is exploration. Now, I did have something written for this segment, but I just saw a shrine in the distance, so let's do that first. Hold up. There's a boss just lying there. Let's kill it. Ooh, is that a tower in that direction? Koroks! I found Koroks. There's an entire town here that I didn't know about. I am hopelessly lost and I couldn't care less. What was I doing? Oh, right, the review. I rate exploration another 11 out of 10. Turn off the minimap and just pick a direction. You will have so much fun. Zelda can wait. I'm sure she's not doing anything important. For our last gameplay segment, we have the combat. And where do I even start? There are so many ways to fight enemies in this game. You can drop rocks on their heads, launch rocks at their heads, drop bees on their heads, drop bombs on their heads. You can even launch heads at their heads. My favorite is the cuckoo. Creative fighting is rewarded. You'll have so many instances where you'll think, oh, this is never gonna work. But then it does, and it's awesome. You know what else was awesome? The difficulty. The keyword there being was. This game is much, much harder than previous Zeldas, but not in a complex gameplay, higher skill ceiling kind of way. This is a 2 hits and you're dead kind of game, which normally I would be a big fan of, if there was some decent variety in the ways that enemies fought you. There isn't. Enemies are limited to a few very basic telegraphed attacks. After 2 or 3 encounters, you will have their attack patterns down. And once you do, every fight with that kind of enemy is easy. And enemy variety isn't great. There's enough that it wouldn't be a problem on its own, but with how simple enemy attacks are, it's bad enough to be noticeable. Combat gets a 9 out of 10. It's a solid system that encourages creativity. There's plenty of variety in how you fight enemies, but once you get the hang of dodging and parrying attacks, combat becomes a joke. I should also mention the breakable weapons. As a game mechanic, I think it's well designed, so I won't dock points for it. But I also understand where the complaints are coming from, because I cannot stress how much I hate weapon degradation. Look at this fire spear I found, isn't it cool? I'm never gonna feel happy using it. I want to enjoy finding better weapons. I want to feel powerful using them. This mechanic prevents me from doing that, and that makes me sad. So let's move on to something happier. The soundtrack. If you're coming into Breath of the Wild expecting the same kind of music Zelda is famous for, you will be disappointed. Musical themes are sparse, and the rest of the game is just ambience and piano chords. It certainly adds to the atmosphere of the game, and the themes we do have are amazing. It's just... oh, how do I put this? It's not as adventurous. It doesn't feel like Zelda music. I would still give it a 10 out of 10. It's incredible for what it is, but this is a case where I can wholeheartedly say that I liked the older stuff better. Which leaves us with only one thing to talk about. The story. Oh boy. Part of the problem is the game's non-linearity. It's not a good environment for character growth, because every NPC you meet could be your first one. All stories have to take place in small areas, and they can't be very long because there's so much else to do. Which sucks. I feel like these could be some of my favorite Zelda characters if they just had more time devoted to them. Another problem I had was the voice acting. I did not like most of it. First off, whoever edited these voice clips together did a terrible job. There are so many instances where a character will finish speaking only to immediately start their next sentence. No pauses for effect, no breathing. You can tell it's been tampered with, and it sounds so unnatural. The lip sync is laughable, performances lack inflection. I felt like I was watching a bad anime dub. Notice how I'm saying all this without pausing? Doesn't it sound bad? Exactly. But even if you ignore the voice acting, the story is just there. It starts out super engaging, full of mystery and intrigue. You will want to figure out what happened. But that's all there is. Figuring out what has happened. And all that made me want to do was play a game set in that time period. But the present stuff is boring and cliched and there's not much of it. You're much better off getting lost in the overworld. It's more fun that way. I give this story a 5 out of 10. It got a few laughs and feels out of me, which keeps it from having a negative score. But when compared to how incredible everything else in this game is, it is painfully average. Thankfully, the rest of the game makes up for that. So I can give The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild a 9.1 out of 10. I had extremely high expectations. Expectations that I didn't think could be met. And yet, for the most part, they were. The sheer scope of this game is almost too much to handle. There is so much to do, so much to see, so much that I haven't even talked about in this video. The story is a bit of a bummer, which is why I advise you to ignore the story as you're playing. It really is more fun that way. It almost makes it a perfect game. If you're playing on the Switch, it might as well be. But as for my personal tastes, I rate Breath of the Wild an 8.5 out of 10. While this game is absolutely phenomenal, It's not quite what I wanted from a Zelda game. I found myself missing the dungeons and bosses of older games, that satisfaction of building an arsenal of items, and I really was disappointed with the story. It's still an amazing game, it might be one of my favorite Zelda games, there's just a few design choices that I don't agree with. Like the puppies. You can't pet the puppies. That is unacceptable. Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching my review. It's been a while since I've made one of these, but I think I finally found a formula that works for me, so expect more in the future. Still not sure about the end result of this one. Part of me feels like I was too harsh, and part of me feels like I was way too lenient. I don't know, I had fun with the game, and that's what matters in the end, right? Please be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and leave a comment with your thoughts on Breath of the Wild. Specifically, where can Nintendo go after this? I really don't think they can top an open world game like this. It's gonna be interesting seeing what comes next. I'd like to hear what ideas you have. Also be sure to check out my social media, follow me on Twitch and Twitter and all that good stuff, and check out my other videos. I would recommend the top 10 Zelda items. I had a lot of fun making that one, and I feel like you would have fun watching it. With all that said, I thank you all so much for watching, I hope you're enjoying life, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!